Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Huma, and I'm from the health and care team here at PSI. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm just going to start off with some housekeeping. So obviously, I'm sure many of you have been on Zoom sessions, but we have interpretation available in French and Spanish and English. If you click on the interpretation globe, you'll be able to choose the language that you would like to participate in today's session with. We will be recording this meeting, so everything will be recorded and we'll be circulating the recording afterwards. We have 3 speakers today, and we are also joined by our General Secretary. But I wanted to just quickly start off the meeting by welcoming everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is a meeting specifically about nursing. It's the first opportunity we have had at PSI to bring nurses together to talk about the issues facing nurses. Many of you would have seen our health and care strategy that we delivered to EB, and this is an opportunity for us to take some specific work we outlined in the strategy forward. And I want to quickly just highlight some of the key points from the strategy and how it relates to today's meeting, specifically around nursing. So I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So those of you who are at EB would have known that we presented our strategy for PSI's work within the health and care sector. It's quite a wide-ranging document, but there's some key specific points within there that relate specifically to nursing and our unions who represent nurses. Hopefully we have shared the document in the chat, which I believe Florence has just done, so you can access the full document there and have a look if you weren't able to access it during EB. So there's kind of some key components within the strategy that we think are really relevant to nurses and the work that a lot of our nursing unions do. And these are kind of components that we have done consistently over the past few years within the health and care work of PSI, and it's something that we want to continue doing. So one of the key components which PSI has been focusing on and is going to continue to focus on is on improving working conditions. So we do a huge amount of work on kind of collective bargaining and solidarity at an international level. I'm sure many of you have seen our campaign recently about Not a Target, which talks about health and care workers being targeted in conflict zones. We mobilize affiliates for solidarity actions for unions who are undergoing industrial actions. We have run sessions around collective bargaining in health and care. For example, towards the end of last year, we ran a session on collective bargaining within the long-term care sector. We do a considerable amount of work around the workforce crisis within health and care. And that's something that particularly this year we've expanded our work on. We've partnered with the WHO to do some work around the National Health Workforce Accounts. In the past, we've done campaigns around safe staffing and how they save lives. We also do some work around occupational health and safety and how to kind of uplift standards. We've got the Global Occupational Health and Safety Network. When the Mpox crisis was happening towards, I think, the beginning of this year, we produced a briefing for all our affiliates and kind of what to do and how to kind of deal with that issue. Another key component of the strategy is organizing. So this is where we're assisting affiliates to kind of grow their unions, to get new members. We're also supporting new unions to kind of form and to affiliate to PSI. When we're talking about organizing, we've got some specific examples, particularly in Africa and Arab countries, where we've had some programs and projects in Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania. Particularly in the health sector. In Kenya, we were able to organize some private sector hospitals, which was really great. We recently won recognition in Ghana at a private hospital. And in Tanzania, we continue to recruit 1,000 new members in health and public sector unions. We've also done some organizing work in the Asia Pacific region, In Indonesia, we've done some organizing work in private hospitals in the unions who kind of trying to expand there. I'm sure many of you have seen the work that PSI has done around community health workers. It's been a campaign, long-running campaign in the Asia Pacific region, where we have been supporting women community health workers fight for recognition, for decent work, for protection from violence and harassment, and good standards in the workplace. A specific win from that was in Pakistan, where we supported the foundation of a new union of over 20,000 women community health workers, which was incredible and something that has been, taken a huge amount of work from the women in Pakistan and the Asia Pacific region. Another key component of the health strategy is the work PSI has been doing on influencing global health and social care policies. We do a lot of work with the WHO, the ILO, and trying to kind of lobby national governments. Specifically at the WHO, we do some work around the World Health Assembly, which is coming up soon. In the invitation to this event, we circulated the briefing the team has prepared about the World Health Assembly, how affiliates can get involved. We do a lot of work with the Health Workforce Division in trying to kind of advocate on behalf of unions there. At the ILO, we intervene at the International Labour Conference. So last year, we intervened quite significantly, working with the other global unions around the ILO's decent work and care agenda. There was a big general discussion there. This year at the International Labour Conference, there was a session around biohazards, which my colleague Daria and some of our affiliates are kind of working on to try and make sure that workers' voices are well represented. We have done a huge amount of work in the past around Convention 190, which applies to violence and harassment in the world of work. And my colleague Veronica continues to kind of push for ratification from lots of different countries and works with affiliates on that. We also do some lobbying of national governments on international policy. So particularly, for example, recently around the pandemic treaty. Last year, this was a huge issue that was going on, and my colleagues Barbara and Pedro did a huge amount of work with affiliates and unions trying to kind of lobby their governments to make sure that workers were properly represented within the pandemic treaty, that their voice was actually coming across, and the pandemic treaty had instruments involved that were protecting workers. And the final pillar of the strategy is access to quality health and care services. So where we've provided kind of strategic research, a lot of the research we've done is around long-term care, talking about the issues within care, the financialization and commercialization of care services, how we can reform services to be improved. We've worked a lot with SICTA, which is the corporate tax research agency, and we've collaborated them on research projects around private equity within health and care services. We do a lot of work building alliances with other organizations and civil society organizations to make sure that we partner with our international work. So we do a lot of work with the Geneva Global Health Hub, which brings together lots of different NGOs that focus within health and care. We have joint events with them. We do a lot of work with them around the World Health Assembly. And then finally, we do a lot of work around tax and trade, which is trying to kind of push the idea that, we can't, public services and public health and care services need to be funded properly. We need a progressive taxation system. And we need to make sure that trade deals aren't implementing barriers to workers or to public services. And so all this kind of work is kind of linked into making sure that PSI is advocating for health and care workers globally, that we're supporting our unions and the work that our unions are doing on the ground. And this all relates to kind of where PSI is going next. Specifically, we noticed that nurses are a very key group within this, quite an active group. A lot of our affiliates represent nurses and are very active and doing a huge amount of work globally. I think we understood that, as we move the strategy forward, that this is an opportunity for us to really support unions and affiliates who represent nurses to increase activity. And I'm going to pass over to Danny now, who's going to talk a bit more specifically around how we envisage the work around nurses within PSI. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Ooh,
Thanks, Huma.
hopefully, I've stopped sharing now.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much. It's welcome to the meeting. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here. Today is the first time we've brought together nurses independently of the sector to discuss their issues. And that's significant for a range of reasons. As Huma mentioned, health and social care is the largest sector in PSI in terms of our membership. Almost half of our affiliates and members come from the health sector. And nurses are really a core part of that, probably the largest section. We are doing other work in other subsectors. So as Huma mentioned, we're doing work with community health workers. We do some work with doctors, allied health workers. But I think nurses are the single largest grouping. And for a while now, some of our affiliates have been very keen to get together to discuss issues that are specifically related to nursing, but also how nurses can contribute to some of our broader work and broader struggles. Now, we've been working on some of these issues for quite some time. During COVID, we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the sacrifice of our health workforce and our health membership, and particularly nurses who were really at the front line of that, were respected and got the protections they needed, could share stories and information about this very rapidly changing pandemic. But then also to warn that because of our global experience, we knew that a lot of the promises that were made during the pandemic probably wouldn't be kept. And we needed to keep the pressure up on governments to do that. And in fact, that has occurred in many places. A lot of promises were made during the pandemic. Not all of them have been kept. So a lot of that was to do with health workforce shortages. And we'd been working on that even prior to the pandemic. We were a member of the United Nations Commission of Health, Employment and Economy that was chaired by the South African President Zuma at the time and Francois Hollande, the President of France at the time. And that commission set out just prior to the pandemic that there was about a 13 million worker shortage in the health sector. A large chunk of those were nurses, and that was getting bigger. And it certainly has got bigger after COVID, because we know that some of the burnout, some of the stress, some of the understaffing and under-resourcing, the devaluing of the nursing profession and the health professions generally has led to a lot of practitioners to leave. And this raises a range of issues, some of which include migration. And we know that in the global north, migrant nurses are essential to the workforce, particularly in caring for the aging population. And in the global south, the flip side is that we're seeing critical shortages of nurses, and the brain drain continues to strain what are already often quite fragile health systems. So we want this forum to be a place where nurses and their unions from different parts of the world can get together and talk about the problems they share, even if sometimes they experience it in complementary ways. And we know they're not the only issues. We know that there's low wages. We know that staffing levels are a problem. Job security and agency work is increasingly found in the sector, poor working conditions. And as I mentioned, we know that this can lead to burnout and exploitation. We have seen an increase in industrial disputation. So shortages, I think, have driven strikes. And a rising demand for stronger labour protections, and nurses' unions becoming more militant, and also working with patients and advocacy groups to ensure that nurses are able to provide the quality of care that the patients want and deserve. We've also done a lot of work fighting privatisation. We know that when health systems are struggling and they're collapsing and they're underfunded, that the private sector will arrive and offer magic bullets, and sometimes politicians will promote this. And so we've been fighting privatisation in the health sector for decades now. as well as organising workers in the private sector so we can take wages out of competition. And I think Huma mentioned a series of those campaigns that we've been involved in the last few years. Huma also mentioned that we presented our revised health strategy to the executive board in December last year. And that has a lot of work in there of interest to nurses, as Huma outlined. It's based on two major themes for PSI, for those of you who are new to us. The first is we are the global voice for health workers, and we're the global voice for nurses in the international forums. So in the World Health Organization, we're the only global union federation that's recognized as the voice for health workers and for nurses. In the ILO, we are actively engaged with the standard setting processes and also in a range of other bodies, the OECD, the United Nations. The second area is supporting our affiliates to build their own power. A lot of the wins, or most of the wins for workers, are achieved at national level, but we can learn from each other and we can support unions to do that. The way in which this network will work is really up to the affiliates. When I was elected as General Secretary, one of the themes of my election was that I want PSI to be affiliate driven, and so this is part of that effort. It will sit underneath the Health and Social Services Task Force, and I think probably have representation on the Health and Social Services Task Force so that the work is integrated with that broader work. But I really think at its base, this network's about bringing together nursing unions in PSI to work on shared interests, to promote your unions and to unleash the power of nurses unions globally. And because we know that nurses unions are often very powerful nationally. So we've been talking to a lot of unions, nurses unions in particular, but also general unions that represent a lot of nurses about what their issues are. We've met with unions in Brazil. Recently, we discussed it with Denosa. I know some of the Nordic unions have expressed their views in our governance bodies. I've been speaking to the New South Wales Nurses and Midwife Association, and recently I was in Quebec and met with FIC. But we've got a lot of unions and we can't go around and meet them all. So this network is a space to facilitate working out what our collective issues are and how we can work on them. I'm really excited that Huma's leading this work for us. She's worked for the Royal College of Nurses in the United Kingdom. It's the first time we have a staff member who's directly responsible for nurses, and I think that's quite an important indication of how important we think that is in PSI. And I want to thank Huma for making this possible and for driving that agenda forward. She joined us at the end of COVID, which was a really difficult time to join PSI, and she's already made a really big difference. So if I could just finish up by saying today, what I'm hoping for is that we can discuss what are the most important issues for nurses around the world, what you're doing about it so that people can learn from each other, both from your wins, but also when we perhaps haven't won or not won as much as we could. So what have we learned? To share and learn from each other, but also identify global trends. So many of our affiliates feel that they are dealing with an issue that's specific to their country. And often what we realize is that, no, this is actually part of a global trend. It's happened in other countries before. You can learn from that, and it will probably happen in other countries after it hits your country, and you can help them learn from your experiences. And then finally, what we can do at global level to help, how PSI can help you, but also how we can help each other and how we can influence standard setting. So much of the standards that our governments implement are actually based on international norm setting and international standard setting, be that at the World Health Organization around specific health standards, or be that at the International Labour Organization where they develop labour standards, or even trade agreements at the World Trade Organization that impact on things like vaccine access, or the UN or the OECD that deals with taxation and the way in which public services are funded. And we want to make sure that nurses have a voice in those global and international forums so that nurses' issues are taken seriously when those standards are set. Because once they're set, it actually makes it harder in a national context to make them better. So they're the things that I'm hoping the network will do. They're the things I'm hoping we'll do today. Thank you very much to Huma and to all of those who've already contributed. I wish you well. I'll stay for as much of this as I can, because I'm personally very interested in the success of the work we'll do together.
Thanks, Danny. And as Danny mentioned, this is the first opportunity we've had at PSI to bring nursing affiliates who represent nurses together. So we are hoping to kind of get some affiliates to kind of sign up to help us drive this activity. We're really keen that everything we do is kind of driven by the affiliates and relates directly to the work that you guys are doing with your members. So I'm going to be sharing, I've just shared a sign up link in the chat, which it would be really great if any affiliates, particularly on this call or wider, are interested in kind of being part of the working group who are going to really push the work that PSI does on nursing forward, related to kind of the points that we outlined in the strategy. And I think it's a really opportunity to make sure that the work that we do wider within health and care at PSI has a nursing element, and also that we are able to be responsive and proactive on specific issues that relate to nursing. So I've just shared the link in the chat. So if you can please kind of sign up to that throughout the event, and we will use kind of that group to kind of keep in contact with, and make sure that kind of we keep kind of keep informed about what's going on. And now we're going to go, the event today is going to be kind of in two parts. So the first part is we are going to be hearing from affiliate unions, some of our really key nursing unions who are doing some incredible work on behalf of their members, who are going to be sharing kind of how nurses are kind of on the front line. Danny mentioned COVID. We know that lots of issues around short staffing, pay, the lack of understanding around kind of the role that the skills that nursing requires. So we have chosen some unions today who are going to highlight the work that they've done with their members to win. And I think it's really important that we highlight unions winning, because with everything going on in the world, the fact of joining a union, the strength of joining a union, and unions are able to kind of have success. So we will be hearing from how unions have been winning collective bargaining agreements, have been mobilizing their members, have been keeping their members engaged throughout long struggles, how they're kind of organizing, how they're growing, what's the impact this is having across nursing wider in their countries. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us to collectively hear of that work and those successes. So the first half of the meeting today, we'll be hearing from 3 unions, hopefully. And then the second half of the meeting, we're hoping to have it be slightly more interactive. We circulated some questions earlier whilst we sent the invitation out for this meeting, where we're really keen to kind of hear directly from affiliates. I think internally at PSI, particularly with the health and care team and the work that we've been doing consistently, we have a broad understanding of kind of what issues relate to the health and care sector, which things are important to our affiliates. But as I mentioned, I think specifically with nursing, we need some feedback from our affiliates to really make sure that everything we're doing is directly relevant to your members and is reflective of kind of your priorities and the work that you think we should be doing internationally. So the second half of the session will be an opportunity for people on this call, for affiliates to kind of feedback based off the questions that we circulated. But the first half, hopefully we can talk and have some really good understanding and stories about how nursing unions are kind of on the front line, how they're fighting on behalf of their members. So I would like to call Julie Bouchard, who is the president of FIC, which is a nursing union in Quebec. Julie, please.
Ben merci beaucoup et bon matin. Pour nous, c'est le matin, donc il est 7 heures le matin. Je ne sais pas où, pour vous, il est quelle heure, mais bon matin ou encore bonne journée. Merci, de nous donner la chance de pouvoir, faire, soit un suivi ou encore, vous mettre au courant, de ce qui se passe, au Québec, dans la belle province du Québec, au Canada. Alors, nous, aujourd'hui, ce qu'on a décidé un petit peu de partager avec vous, c'est vraiment au niveau des négociations. Alors, après environ 2 ans de négociations, on a finalement signé une convention collective sur 5 ans. Donc, elle aura une durée de 5 ans. Et cette signature-là s'est faite à l'automne 2024. Mais il faut absolument que vous sachiez que le tout s'est fait dans un climat tendu et vraiment très difficile, j'irais même jusqu'à dire à certains moments hostile. Les négociations ont débuté en 2022, alors que le réseau de la santé publique venait tout juste de sortir de la pandémie, donc de la COVID-19. Et évidemment, comme partout ailleurs, nos infirmières et les professionnels en soins ont été là, très éprouvés et j'irais même jusqu'à dire très maltraités pendant la pandémie de la part de notre gouvernement au Québec. Nous sommes partis des anges gardiens à des simples numéros qui sont dans l'obligation de donner des soins. Alors, tout au long de la négociation, on a fait face à un gouvernement très méprisant, mais surtout anti-syndical envers le travail de nos propres membres. Le processus a été extrêmement long et laborieux et malgré tous nos efforts constants, on n'a jamais réussi à s'entendre directement avec l'employeur. Il aura fallu en fait une recommandation, hem, du, conciliateur pour pouvoir avoir une convention collective. Alors, en fait, avoir une recommandation du conciliateur, ce qu'il faut que vous sachiez, c'est que c'est la première fois dans l'histoire des négociations du secteur public que ça arrive. Alors, dans ce contexte-là, on doit quand même avouer que c'est quand même à contre-cœur sur certains points, que, l'employeur a accepté la recommandation du conciliateur, mais que nous aussi, on a dû accepter la conciliation du conciliateur. Mais il y a quand même, suite à cette recommandation-là qui a été acceptée, on a quand même fait une analyse, fait une évaluation et force est de constater que ça aurait pu être bien pire. Il y a quand même de bonnes percées qui ont été faites là, malgré tout dans cette nouvelle convention collective-là. Avant l'intervention du conciliateur, le gouvernement tenait mordicus à déplacer les infirmières d'une unité de soins à l'autre où elles ne sont pas habituées de travailler. Et ce n'est pas juste un déplacement, c'est il voulait absolument qu'elle se déplace lorsque il y avait des besoins, sans même qu'elle soit orientée dans le département où il voulait les déplacer, mais également dans d'autres établissements et des fois à des dizaines de kilomètres de différence d'un établissement à l'autre. Donc, vous comprendrez que ça avait absolument aucun sens pour la planification du travail, pour la sécurité des soins, mais aussi pour une conciliation travail, famille, vie personnelle. Déjà que dans notre milieu, on sait à quelle heure on débute, mais on ne sait jamais à quelle heure on termine. Alors, de savoir à la dernière minute qu'on doit se déplacer pour aller travailler dans un autre établissement venait complètement changer le mode de vie de plusieurs professionnels en soins et pour nous, c'était inacceptable. Le gouvernement était vraiment très attaché à cette idée-là d'importer des méthodes du secteur privé parce que pour le gouvernement au Québec, tout ce qui provient du privé est automatiquement beaucoup plus efficace. Et nous, notre vision, évidemment, c'est que le privé en santé, ça n'a jamais été de bon augure. Fait que vous voyez comment nos visions sont diamétralement opposées. En fait, à chaque fois où il y a eu des décisions qui ont été prises, que c'était d'importer des manières de faire du privé vers le public, ça a toujours été un constat d'échec. Mais malgré ça, le gouvernement au Québec continue et persiste à vouloir en implanter de plus en plus. C'est désolant parce qu'au Québec et au Canada, on est fiers. On est fiers de notre système de santé publique, dont certains politiciens, entre autres aux États-Unis, veulent s'inspirer. Nos centres locaux de services communautaires, que nous, on appelle nos CLSC, dont Taïwan s'est inspiré lorsqu'il a créé là, son régime d'assurance maladie dans les années 90, étaient à cette époque-là des outils formidables, vraiment formidables pour faciliter l'accès à la population à la première ligne. Mais les gouvernements subséquents ont petit à petit dénaturé le modèle et ça a fait en sorte que ça a donné à chaque fois une petite part de plus au privé dans le réseau. Et à chaque fois que des décisions comme ça sont prises, ça fait en sorte qu'on a des professionnels en soins qui quittent le réseau de la santé publique pour aller travailler dans le privé. Ça fait en sorte que les services offerts à la population diminuent ou encore, ça fait en sorte qu'on vient diminuer les services offerts normalement universellement à la population. Donc, les plus riches peuvent se payer de meilleurs soins médicaux et attendre moins longtemps sur les listes d'attente. Mais si on revient plus à la négociation, on s'est fait entendre quand même pendant toute la négociation. On a, en fait, pendant ces 2 ans-là, on a travaillé extrêmement fort à mobiliser les membres. On a organisé des manifestations. On a fait plusieurs campagnes de visibilité, dont notre plus récente qu'on a appelée « Nos conditions de travail sont vos conditions de soins ». On a évidemment créé des publicités radio. On a occupé l'espace devant l'Assemblée nationale pendant 3 jours de manière illégale. On a bloqué, perturbé le trafic sur des artères névralgiques. On a organisé des conférences de presse. On a fait des centaines d'entrevues et on a utilisé notre moyen ultime qui se trouve à être la grève légale. Alors, c'est 8 journées de grève qui ont marqué non seulement une étape qui était déterminante de notre négociation, mais une étape aussi historique dans l'histoire de notre province. C'est près d'1 demi-million de personnes à travers le Québec, dont la majorité étaient des femmes. On parle d'environ 90% de femmes qui sont sorties dans les rues et qui se sont fait entendre. Il faut savoir qu'au Québec, on a une population d'environ 9 millions de personnes, dont plus ou moins 500 000 travailleuses. Et c'était 500 000 travailleuses en grève qui représentaient une énorme portion de la population. Donc, c'est vraiment une démonstration de solidarité qui a été un signal très fort, qui a été envoyé au gouvernement, qui est, nous, notre employeur. Donc, notre mot d'ordre était « on ne se taira, nous ne nous tairons pas et on va continuer à revendiquer des conditions de travail de ce nom. On veut être en mesure de donner des soins sécuritaires et évidemment adapter les réalités au terrain. »
Sorry, Julie. Sorry, just hold on a second. So can everyone please mute themselves? Sorry, I think there's someone who has their microphone on. Can you please all make sure that you're muted? Sorry, continue, Julie, sorry.
I think it might be Alejandro. Is Alejandro can maybe turn his mute his mic? Alejandro?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Donc, ça va, pas de problème. En fait, c'est suite à cette mobilisation-là qui va avoir permis de souligner l'importance de la cause syndicale au Québec, de poursuivre aussi l'ensemble des luttes féministes et de faire pression pour que des solutions soient trouvées. Non seulement pour le personnel infirmier, mais pour l'ensemble des travailleuses et travailleurs là, du secteur public, donc incluant l'éducation et d'autres corps de métier. Donc, l'importance de la solidarité a vraiment été mise en lumière parce que c'est ensemble qu'on doit défendre notre profession et surtout porter nos revendications puisque rendu en 2025, porter des revendications seules ne se fait plus. Il n'y a plus de chance de gain. Alors maintenant, c'est vraiment ensemble, solidairement, collectivement qu'on est capable d'aller encore plus loin. Donc, pour terminer, je vous dirais que les enjeux du réseau de la santé sont loin d'être résolus. Les conditions de travail qui sont déjà très difficiles continuent à poser des défis majeurs pour une population qui est vieillissante au Québec et un nombre de professionnels en soins, d'infirmières qui diminue à chaque année. Mais le processus de négociation a quand même démontré que lorsque l'on se serre les coudes, qu'on fait front commun et que nous portons nos revendications avec détermination et courage, il est vraiment possible de faire bouger les choses. Lentement, mais sûrement. Et des gouvernements de centre droit ou de centre droit ou encore de droite, comme nous en voyons là, de plus en plus apparaître ici au Québec, au Canada, mais aussi à travers le monde, va faire en sorte qu'on va devoir encore plus se lier ensemble et porter un message commun pour les droits des travailleuses et des travailleurs, mais également pour les femmes qui sont elles aussi des travailleuses et qui ont droit d'avoir les mêmes conditions de travail que les hommes. Alors, nous les femmes, on a le pouvoir de faire changer les choses. On est loin d'avoir gagné toutes les batailles, mais on ne reculera pas, évidemment, parce que c'est impossible de reculer. Et cette journée internationale des infirmières me fait vraiment prendre un moment de recul pour penser en fait à tout ce qu'on a accompli collectivement et combien nous devons aux infirmières dans les luttes ouvrières et surtout syndicales. Alors, restons féministes jusqu'au bout, restons infirmières et professionnels en soins jusqu'au bout, restons juste nous-mêmes à vouloir mener des combats collectivement. Alors voilà, merci.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you so much for talking about how kind of you engaged members in this quite extensive process, and the issues that you guys are facing in Quebec is something that I think a lot of our affiliates can relate to. So thank you so much. So just quickly moving on to our next speaker because I'm aware of time. So our next speaker is from the Norwegian Nurses Organization. Gro is the second president, and I will hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll try to share screen. I have a presentation. So I hope you can see my presentation now. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Dear colleagues, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Norwegian Nurses Organization. We are the largest professional and trade union organization for nurses and midwives in Norway, representing 130,000 members. Our mission is to protect the rights, working conditions, and professional development of nurses, and to ensure healthcare systems that serve people equally, regardless of income or geography. Today, I will share a few of our experiences and strategies in collective bargaining, organizing, and advocacy. Many of the challenges we face are shared globally. Shortages of health workers, underfunded systems, and the undervaluation of care work. and we believe in learning from each other across borders. Our organizing model is based on local empowerment. We aim to have at least one union representative at every workplace, elected by the members and trained by us. These reps are frontline organizers, supporting members directly, resolving conflicts, and identifying and raising local concerns to national attention. We support them through regional offices and a national team with expertise in legal affairs, bargaining, health policy, and education. In Norway, as in many countries, we are seeing an alarming shortage of nurses and other health professionals. This is partly due to an overall labor shortage, but it's also about poor retention linked to low pay, high workloads, and a lack of professional recognition. While politicians agree there's no quick fix, our question is, are we willing to invest in long-term sustainable solutions? This conversation is happening in a global context where in many countries, military spending is surging. Public resources are under pressure, but as unions, we have one of the most powerful tools, collective strength and community organizing. Around 12% of the nurses working in Norway today were educated abroad. We are, of course, dependent on them, and we could not do without. However, we are equally committed to ethical recruitment in line with the WHO Global Code of Practice. Last year, the Nordic Nurses Federation, where we work with our sister organizations in Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands, jointly called on our governments to ensure sustainability and fairness in workforce planning, both domestically and internationally. To ensure our future strength, we run targeted campaigns to recruit and activate nursing students and early career nurses. We introduce them to union values and ensure that they experience the benefits of solidarity from the start. This work has high priority and is important in order to ensure the role of unions in our political system, strengthen employee awareness, avoid deterioration of working conditions. In Norway, new graduates pay reduced membership fees for the first 2 years. And this early connection is crucial to building a lifelong union culture. There's also a picture of our student representatives in this, yes, on the screen here. In our labor market, collective bargaining is central. We negotiate agreements with both public and private employers at both national and local levels, and the agreements govern salary, working time, pensions, holidays, and more. One of our key strategies is member mobilization. Before each national major bargaining round, which is every 2nd year, we consult extensively with our members and local reps. This ensures our demands are grounded in everyday realities of working nurses and ensures strength and invaluable backing in the negotiations. And we also have the membership support needed to act when necessary. I would like to highlight 2 current advocacy issues we've been working on. The first is recognition of occupational injuries in health and care work, especially in female-dominated professions. We have been working for decades for an update on the regulations on occupational injuries, which haven't been updated since 1958. For instance, physical and psychological strains typically faced in female-dominated professions are deprioritized in the national list of occupational diseases recognized for public compensation. For example, research shows a clear link between night work and increased risk of breast cancer, yet this is still not recognized in a national list of occupational diseases. We have worked with other unions and civil society to demand this to be updated, and actually, in a few weeks, Parliament will now consider our proposals, and the matter is to be reviewed before summer, so we are very eager to see the outcome. The second is psychosocial health and safety. We have long argued that mental and emotional strain should be recognized in the law. Nurses are exposed daily to suffering, trauma, and complex emotional demands, and when these risks are not addressed, it leads to exhaustion and sickness absence. So this year, Norway's Parliament will debate whether to include these risks explicitly in our Working Environment Act. We believe this is essential, not just for nurses, but for all professions working with people. And both of these campaigns are also about gender equality, ensuring that women's work is valued, recognized, and protected equally in health and safety policy. Let me give you a few examples of our labor actions in recent years. We have been involved in a few strikes across hospitals, care homes, and universities. Many of these ended with forced arbitration by the government, citing risks to life and health. Unfortunately, this often limits our ability to win real gains through strike action in the healthcare sector. When there's not a sufficient amount of nurses at work, it's also difficult to go on strike. But still, we have had some key victories. One example is a recent agreement in the private healthcare sector, where the threat of a strike led to higher minimum wages for nurses and specialist nurses, bringing them closer to public sector levels. Another win game from a legal case involving 4 of our members, whose salaries were cut when their employer joined a different employer association. We supported them all the way through the courts, and they won in the Supreme Court, setting a precedent for all unionized workers. So these stories show the value of union membership and the importance of strong legal, political, and grassroots strategies working together. To conclude, let me return to the broader picture, the global shortage of healthcare workers and the growing competition for public resources. Our systems are under enormous pressure, but the health sector plays an essential part in a country's preparedness, and universal access to quality public services is fundamental to ensure social equality and stability. Nurses and caregivers are the backbone of those systems. And as unions, we are the key actors in this struggle, not only for our members, but for society as a whole. Our work as trade unions and in PSI is of great importance, and I'm grateful to be part of this community. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'm looking forward to hearing your views and experiences in the following sessions. And I'd like to finish with Florence Nightingale, who said, "I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuses." So raise your head, stand tall, and stand up for the nurses, for the patients, and for society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gro. Thank you. That was an excellent presentation. And thank you so much for talking about kind of the wins that you've had as a union. I think it's really important to share, particularly globally, to, even though everyone's existing in quite specific and unique contexts, about like how we can learn from each other and how we can understand what similarities we have, and what are the kind of the overlapping themes that are happening, and how unions globally can learn from that. So we were hoping to have our last speaker from DENOSA, which is the nursing union from South Africa, but I understand that they have had another event that they've also had to attend. But Lina, I see that you're on the call. I don't know if you wanted to speak or whether you're still participating in the other event. I didn't want to move on without giving you the opportunity.
No, thank you very much, Huma. I may need to speak, then we will take it from there. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So yeah. So you're at the other event.
Yes, I'm still in the other event, but
Okay.
I ought to excuse myself from
Okay.
the event like I promised, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think now we will move over to the second half of the event. We've got about 40 minutes in the agenda.
No, sorry, Huma. Sorry, I'm saying I'm ready to speak. Hence,
Oh, great. Sorry. Sorry.
Yes.
Please go ahead. Sorry.
Yo, no, thank you very much. And greetings to your good self, Huma, and the General Secretary and the colleagues at large. Allow me to stand on the protocol that has already been observed, and kindly bear with me on the area which I'm addressing you on. I'm in the car because of the Nurses Day that I'm attending. But nonetheless, the topic that is given to us as the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa is to talk about the nursing shortages and the reduction of students that are entering the nursing education and training. How does this impact on the nursing staff and the healthcare services of our community? We want to indicate that in 2019, the intake that we normally had, it was 2,917. It decreased up until in 2022, it reached 1,468. It further decreased in 2025. Amongst the reasons why we are having these challenges of the students that are entering the nursing systems, it would be the change in curriculum. The curriculum that we used to have before has changed, and the new curriculum allows certain subjects for us to train the nurses in the country, like your science subjects, your mathematics, and the likes. The other thing are the points that they need at the university level. And you will all know that at university level, it's different than the colleges. Before, we had a lot of training colleges. And when we were actually closing down the nursing colleges, we were looking at the fact that we want the entry notches of the nurses to be the same as other healthcare categories as compared to what we are having now. The other thing is that we are having an aging population in South Africa. Statistics shows that 20% of nurses are about 65 years old, and this causes a great gap in the skilled or experienced nurses. The contributory factors is the curriculum change that I've spoken about, and is the financial constraints or the austerity measures that the government has introduced. The other thing is the lack of nurse educators in the country. When the curriculum changed, what happened in 2020, it is that people with master's degrees and your PhDs are the ones, in fact, who qualified to train the lower categories like your degrees and the diploma. And the problem is that these people are not remunerated as such. As a result, people chose to go to clinical, where remuneration is better as compared to the colleges or the universities. And we are going to talk as well about the potential solutions, or maybe before the potential solutions, let us indicate to the House that the output of nurses that we are training does not match the growing population that we have in the country, not at all. And that leaves us with stressors, anxieties, your burnout, your brain drain, and other things that you may actually think of. So the potential solution is to facilitate the approach from the South African Nursing Council, which is the approach to try and streamline the nursing education and training, and to speak to the government to increase the funding, the involvement of private sector in the training of the nurses, because this is what used to happen prior. Private sector will train the number of nurses, but request them to serve them for the certain period they have trained them. And then that is no longer happening as we speak today. And the other thing is to make sure that we are addressing the retention strategies, because the South African nurses are leaving South Africa to high-income countries, whereas we are the ones that have trained them. I'm also going to talk about the organizational campaigns and the collective bargaining and what we actually won. But the colleague before me covered us on quite a number of things, and especially in the collective bargaining. The safety and security issues in South Africa, we have challenges. We are a country that is full of violence. There's vandalization of the institutions. Nurses are attacked in the line of duty. So we managed to make some strides in terms of the safety and securities. And our mobilization programs were on the posters, your local radio stations, your social media, and we used the COSATU as the federation to try and lobby other affiliates to support us. It was a great success, and we have seen differences. The gender-based violence issues, where the 3 nurses were killed, though they were not killed in the line of duty, but they were nurses. We also won the case. So we mobilized all the nurses to support during the court dates all the time. And then we had the occupational specific dispensation, which is an OSD, which was established to make better the salaries of the nurses. The other thing, we won the arbitration award on payment of danger allowance for those nurses who are working in the mental health care institutions. The other thing, we hosted the ICN Biennial Congress in the past years. The other thing is that as DINOSA, we are in alliance with COSATU, which is the biggest trade union in the country, and it's leading in its union membership. And as DINOSA, we are not only affiliating, we have members that are leading from their different provinces. We have addressed the systemic issues like your chief nursing officers, and we are the consultants in the NHI, and which is the universal health insurance. And the other thing, we are now having the draft agreement on the uniform for nurses across the country to be provided by government, because your SACP, your police, your correctional services, and your traffic officers are given uniform by government and in a form of uniform as compared to nurses. Nurses are given the monetary value, which is not equal to what others are getting, but we are pleased to report that we have a draft agreement on that one. We continue to defend the workers' rights at Bargaining Council, and we are also advancing for gender equity. We are lobbying other unions for support in their majority, especially at the Bargaining Council. When we have an agenda item, that becomes our major strength to win issues at collective bargaining. And we have revitalized the Quad, which is your South African Nursing Council, the Department of Health, and DINOSA. This helps us when there are issues. We are able to sit down, bring the strategy together. DINOSA bring their views, South African Nursing Council bring their views, the department bring their views, the shortfalls, and at the end of the day, we are able to come together with something concrete that we have agreed upon. That is the presentation that we have so far, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for kind of fitting us in. I know you have an incredibly busy day today. So thank you so much. And I think it's really interesting to hear about the huge range of campaigns DINOSA is doing and how you're engaging in social dialogue and working with other unions within the country. So thank you so much, Lynette. I think that's amazing. So now we have about half an hour left of the meeting to talk about and hear from other participants in the call. Perhaps reflect upon some of the questions which I will share in a minute, and hear from unions from different parts of the world, whether we to share kind of what your perspective is, and if you could please put your hand up on Zoom. I think it's on the reaction button. That means that you will automatically go to the front. You can also put your comments in the chat and I can read them out for you. And if you could also, when you speak, please say your name clearly and what union you are from. I will quickly just share the questions. Just 2 seconds. Okay, so these are, hopefully you can see all the questions. So these are the questions we kind of shared before the meeting. They're quite varied, but I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of hear directly from as many nursing affiliates as we can. I see someone has their hand up. Kofi, please state your name and what union you're from. Kofi, please go ahead. I don't know if we've lost our comrade. Maybe the connection's gone, but
Kofi, if you want to speak, you can, if you unmute yourself and speak, it's your.
okay, I don't think. So if anyone else would like to speak or contribute, please put your hand up. We have had some contributions in the chat, which I can read now. So we've had some great contributions and discussions in the chat, which hopefully people have been talking about, reading about. We've had some contributions from Alejandro. I don't know what union you're from, so if you could write what union you're from, talking about mental health and the age of nurses. It's something that our speakers have spoken about as well, particularly our speaker from South Africa, about how nurses are aging and governments are not necessarily recruiting to make sure that they're filling. We've had a comrade from Mauritius talking about staffing shortages. And even though the government has acknowledged it, how they're going to fix it and whether they're going to go on and recruit retired nurses as one way to fix the nursing issues within the country. Just have a quick look at it. Oh, Kofi, please go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, hi, perfect, I can hear you.
Merci beaucoup. Ok, merci beaucoup. Bonjour tout le monde. Moi, je m'appelle Amenuji Kofi. Je suis infirmier au Togo. Je suis dans le syndicat national des praticiens hospitaliers du Togo. Donc, merci aux différents présentateurs. J'ai bien suivi la présentation, mais il y a quelque chose qui me tracasse un peu. Quand j'ai suivi la présentation de l'Afrique du Sud, elle a parlé de la fuite du personnel. Je vois la présentation du Canada également, du Québec, qui parle de la main-d'œuvre infirmière est très basse, également au niveau de la Norvège. Et la réalité que nous voyons au Togo, concrètement, il y a également la fuite du personnel infirmier et la majorité vers le Québec. Je voudrais d'abord comprendre qu'est-ce qui explique que la main-d'œuvre également au Québec est basse. Est-ce que c'est le nombre d'étudiants qu'ils forment par an qui pose le problème? Puisque je sais qu'ils forment et je sais qu'il y a une grande partie des infirmiers togolais, voire africains, qui immigrent vers le Canada, le Québec pour aller travailler. Ce qui, selon moi, statistiquement, la main-d'œuvre ne doit pas être basse au niveau du Québec et dans beaucoup de pays européens ou bien occidentaux. Donc, qu'est-ce qui explique cela? Si nous aussi, au niveau des pays à revenus faibles, on parle de main-d'œuvre réduite et de l'autre côté, on parle également de main-d'œuvre réduite. C'est quoi le problème? Est-ce que ce sont les autorités qui refusent de recruter ou c'est quoi complètement le problème? Maintenant, par rapport à tous les efforts de PSI, au Togo, par exemple, nous, on n'a qu'une association, les infirmiers, et on lutte pour l'instant à aller vers l'ordre des infirmiers qui pose pour l'instant problème sur le tapis. Les autorités ne donnent pas encore assez. Et je voudrais demander, est-ce que, à côté du syndicat de tout le personnel, est-ce qu'on peut avoir également le syndicat des infirmiers, vu qu'on est pour l'instant à l'étape de l'ordre, et si comment faire pour entrer en partenariat avec d'autres syndicats des infirmiers d'autres pays qui sont du moins sur la plateforme ici pour qu'ils nous aident à pouvoir également mettre en place un syndicat des infirmiers. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Kofi. Julie, I don't know if you would like to respond. I think it would be really helpful. Thank you.
Oui, en fait, ce qui explique la baisse des infirmières au Québec, en fait, ce n'est pas nécessairement une baisse en nombre parce que on a un ordre professionnel où chaque infirmière doit se joindre là, du moment où elle devient infirmière. Et selon le nombre, il n'y a jamais eu autant d'infirmières au Québec. Par contre, elles ne sont pas toutes dans le secteur public. Et c'est là où on a des problématiques de recrutement, mais aussi on a des gens qui quittent tout simplement le réseau public pour s'en aller vers le réseau privé. La première difficulté qu'on a, c'est vraiment au niveau des conditions de travail. Au Québec, ce qui mine le plus, c'est le temps supplémentaire obligatoire. Donc, après notre quart de travail, s'il y a un manque de personnel, les infirmières doivent demeurer au travail pour un quart de travail supplémentaire, ce qui veut dire que leur journée sera de 16 heures de travail consécutif et non 8 heures. Alors, vous comprendrez que c'est nettement pas une condition de travail qui est intéressante. Au contraire, ça fait en sorte que la conciliation travail-famille-vie personnelle est extrêmement difficile. Il y a également les ratios professionnels-patients qu'on réclame depuis plus de 10 ans. C'est une bataille que nous, à la FIC, on mène depuis une décennie et un petit peu plus. En fait, ce qu'on veut, c'est avoir un nombre de professionnels en soins pour un nombre de patients. Parce qu'actuellement, la surcharge de travail dans le réseau public est très, très, très présente et ça fait en sorte également qu'il y a des infirmières qui quittent le réseau de la santé publique pour s'en aller dans le privé. Et la troisième chose qui fait en sorte qu'on a de plus en plus de difficultés à recruter les infirmières pour qu'elles viennent travailler avec nous dans le public, c'est le privé. Le privé offre des conditions de travail nettement supérieures au réseau public, mais également le salaire est beaucoup plus élevé au privé qu'au public. Juste pour vous donner une petite idée, une infirmière va gagner aux alentours de, mettons, 45-48 $ de l'heure au public, alors qu'au privé, elle peut en gagner jusqu'à 100 $ de l'heure. Alors, c'est une bataille qu'on a à mener également ici au Québec. Il y a déjà une loi qui a été déposée par le gouvernement de ne plus du tout là, embaucher les agences de placement de personnel qui proviennent du privé vers le public. Mais ça fait tellement longtemps, ça fait des années que le réseau public fonctionne avec ces agences parce que sinon, on était dans l'impossibilité de donner des soins, que le sevrage est encore difficile à faire, là, même en 2025. Donc, c'est vraiment des conditions de travail qui expliquent tout ça, le fait qu'on n'ait pas de ratio comme on aimerait avoir et qui a déjà été implanté dans certaines provinces au Canada, mais nous, au Québec, on travaille encore là-dessus, et le fait que le privé est plus intéressant que le public. Alors, voilà.
Thank you, Julie. And I think it's key to kind of highlight those differences between the public and private sector. Obviously, at PSI, we represent nurses across all sectors. So it's really great to kind of hear from what work affiliates are doing to make sure those two groups are kind of well represented. I think if anyone else has any comments that they would like to raise, please do put your hand up. I was just looking quickly at the chat, and we have this another comment talking about, I think this is from the perspective of South Africa, talking about the shortages of nurses and particularly specialist nurses, which are kind of leading to the collapse of health systems, talking about training and how, you know, different groups need to come together to make sure that they're training enough specialist nurses. And I think that's really interesting because we've spoken about kind of the age of nurses and the specialism and making sure that each kind of part of the health system is well staffed with nurses. So I'm just going to check if there are any more contributions.
Uma, can I up with a question that I wouldn't mind posing to the group, depending a little bit on whether or not people feel they can answer it on the spot. But there does seem to be a lot of concern about workforce planning, recruitment and retention. The idea that there is just not enough nurses being recruited and then they don't stay. And I think some people spoke about it in terms of the issues. Others spoke about the aging population of the nurse workforce. And I just wonder if that is something that resonates for people across the call, but also what's driving it and what are people doing? Is there anything in particular, or is it the culmination of a series of these issues around conditions and wages and so on? So I wonder if anyone's got any particular insight on or whether or not it is an issue that people are dealing with around workforce shortages, really.
Whilst people quickly ponder that. Oh, yes. Please go ahead, Lina.
No, thank you very much, Huma, and thanks, General Secretary, for the question. We must indicate that as a country, there's a lot that we are actually doing to try and deal with this challenge. As actually we will be going to the ICN Congress, there are presentations that are actually there that some of our members from the Quad will be doing the presentations on this, maybe to seek advices from other countries. And the other thing, we are working in collaboration with government. I think our issues now as the country, it is that we are in a government of national unity. We no longer have one government, which maybe as COSATU affiliates, it was easy to engage them. I guess that is where actually the delay in the changes is coming from. But we are working with the South African Nursing Council very closely in ensuring that they make sure that those institutions where government has injected money so that there is accreditation, they go and inspect and see if they are ready to can start the training. So we are trying something and we are trying our best. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So I can't see any more hands, and I don't think there are any more comments in the chat, I think. So I think I just want to quickly talk about kind of where we go next with this. So obviously, Danny mentioned that this is our first opportunity to focus specifically just on nursing and bring nursing affiliates who represent nurses together. So I think this has been really interesting for us to hear directly from you guys and to get a sense of kind of what the specific issues are. I think we have to do a bit more engagement. And Danny mentioned we're meeting affiliates, as many as we can. So I think we will continue trying to meet as many affiliates as we can to make sure that PSI's work specifically on nursing is reflective of the issues. So I think following up from this meeting, I'm going to try and pull together into maybe a really short document, kind of what we've discussed today, how this kind of relates to the strategy that we outlined earlier, and where we kind of go next, thinking specifically around activities and stuff that we can do collectively. So hopefully that will be coming. We'll also be compiling a very short, concise survey, because I understand that obviously with time differences, we've not been able to reach everyone that PSI represents. So we will be sending out a really short survey specifically on nursing and the work that we are proposing here, and to take suggestions specifically on activities. So those two things will be coming out in the aftermath of this event. We might potentially, if the need arises and affiliates want to, we can bring another meeting together to kind of discuss some of the stuff we've spoken about today, give the opportunity for other people to speak, maybe from a different part of the world, in a different time zone. So that is kind of what we're envisaging as kind of the next steps. We'll also be circulating the sign-up sheet for the working group out to all affiliates beyond this call, and try and really work with that group and the people who've kind of signed up to that in compiling this 2-pager together, kind of being like, this is kind of PSI's proposal for kind of nursing and what we would like to do for the rest of this year. There's obviously wider stuff that they're doing, PSI is doing within health and care work. One of them is the upcoming World Health Assembly, ILC's just around the corner, and kind of making sure that we are kind of promoting those opportunities if they're relevant to you and your members as well. So that's kind of the immediate next step. I don't know, Danny, if you want to say, oh yeah, there you go, put your hand up, perfect.
No, I think the next steps make sense, and I think the meeting's gone really well. The presentations are great, and I think there's a lot of really interesting and rich content in the chat. What I was going to say is Coffee has said that he doesn't think all his questions were answered. So I don't know if that was, if he does now or not. And I don't know if that was a direct reference to the issue of attempting to establish a union in Togo and not just a professional association. So I just thought Coffee might want to indicate if there are which of his specific questions he didn't think were answered, because it's possible we can answer them just before we finish up.
Kofi, would you like to come back in? I don't know
if he's, I think he was having troubles with his connection. So if not, then we'll follow that up perhaps after the call.
Yeah, I think that might be best. But yes, I
Je
think.
peux?
Oh, perfect. Go ahead, please, Kofi.
Ok, merci beaucoup, hein, merci beaucoup pour l'intérêt. Ma question qui n'a pas eu de réponse, je parlais du syndicat des infirmiers. Au Togo, on a un seul syndicat du personnel hospitalier. Et je voudrais dire, vu que nous sommes pour l'instant à l'étape d'association, on est en train de lutter pour avoir l'ordre des infirmiers, on ne l'a pas encore eu. Est-ce que à côté de ça, on peut tenter d'avoir également le syndicat des infirmiers? Si oui, dans quelle mesure d'autres pays qui l'ont déjà peuvent nous aider à y accéder? Merci.
So that I'll answer that, Huma, because I thought that was the question that went unresponded. I mean, I think the government situation in Togo is complicated, and that creates particular challenges for establishing trade unions. But I think we can look at that if there is a desire to establish a nurses trade union. We can certainly reach out, Coffee, and see exactly what the possibilities are, and do a bit of an analysis about what would be needed, and other countries might be interested in supporting that work as well. So I think that the short answer is I can't answer exactly and specifically now, but if there is a demand to establish an independent nurses trade union in Togo, then I think that's the sort of support that PSI might be able to provide, and we may be able to find support from other nurses unions around the world who either have been through similar experiences or who want to support that process. So we'll get back to you about that.
Yeah, we have your contact details from when you signed up to this event, Kofi, so we can follow up afterwards, which I think will be useful. But great, yes. So I think that calls this meeting to an end. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you so much for your presentations, and thank you for everyone for attending. Hopefully this is kind of the first meeting we have. It's really great to see some familiar faces and some new people. So I really look forward to kind of working with everyone. And if there are any colleagues who haven't been able to attend today, please do let them know about this, and particularly around the working group. It'll be great to get as wide a representation of affiliates as possible involved in this. But thank you so much. Thank you to the interpretation team, and to the admin team at PSI. I hope everyone has a nice day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Homa. Bye-bye.